Welcome to Technovation. I'm your host, Peter High. My guest today is Marcia Calleja-Matsko. Marcia is the Chief Information Officer of OneDigital, an insurance, financial services, and human resources consulting advisory firm that earns roughly $1 billion in annual revenue. She's been in role for roughly a year and a half. And as CIO, Marcia is responsible for all IT functions, including the strategic planning and execution of OneDigital's information technology services to support growth of the organization. Prior to joining OneDigital, Marcia served as the CIO of Avanos Medical, a medical device company. Marcia, welcome to Technovation. It's great to speak with you today.
Thank you, Peter. I'm very happy to be here.
Wonderful. Well, let's begin with OneDigital itself. I gave a brief thumbnail sketch as to the business you're in, but maybe you can take it from there and provide a little bit more depth.
I would be happy to. So OneDigital actually started in the .com era. So our CEO and co-founder, Adam Bruckman, and Mike Sullivan started the company back in 2000, and it started out an empty office, two people with a dream about starting an insurance company in Atlanta. And that company has since grown to the point that we are today. We have started from just focused on employee benefits and now have grown to almost 4,000 employees nationwide with $1 billion plus in revenue. And OneDigital focuses on brokerage, human resources consulting, but also we've expanded our portfolio to include property and casualty, Medicare, as well as wealth and retirement services. We cover a broad spectrum of services and for our clients, and we're headquartered here in Atlanta, but we have about 180 offices across the U.S., supporting our clients across the U.S. We also do quite a bit in terms of acquisitions. We do about 30 plus acquisitions a year, so it keeps us busy. So just very excited to be here and talk a little bit more about OneDigital and the work that we're doing here.
Wonderful. Well, let's talk about your role as Chief Information Officer. I mentioned for roughly a year and a half you've been in role. Talk about your purview as CIO, if you would.
Sure. So as CIO, at OneDigital. So I'm responsible for all of our technology services. So this includes security. This includes your service desk, digital workplace services, infrastructure, hosting, networking at all of our offices, as well as application development, platform development, in addition to services supporting our business partners. So around HR, our product development teams, sales operations, et cetera. So pretty broad in terms of support, but what we really focus on here at OneDigital is the culture and the culture of our teams, and just very excited to be working with a fantastic IT technology team here in Atlanta and across the US, and supporting our business teams within OneDigital.
What are some of the ways in which you typify that culture?
We are really focused on supporting our employees and doing their best work, and really in helping our clients and our customers be able to live their best lives, really. So it's the culture. We were recently named as a top company from Glassdoor this past year. And so that was a huge accomplishment for OneDigital. Adam really supports and really is a huge proponent around how we build the culture. How do we work with each other, making sure that there's respect, there's trust. We have people that have been here 15, 20, 25 years since the start of the company. And so that really tells a lot about, the culture and the people that you're working with. So I was super excited about joining OneDigital, because for me, culture is probably one of my top priorities and the things that I look for when joining a new company.
And then Adam, you're mentioning, is obviously Adam Bruckman, the co-founder and Chief Executive Officer. Yes. Excellent. And I wanted to also ask you mentioned the roughly 30 plus acquisitions per year. That's quite a number. And I'm curious what the implications are for your organization and how you think about technology's involvement and integration of companies as they are acquired.
It's a careful dance. When you acquire companies, we acquire companies that are 2-person in size all the way up to 250 and higher. And so what's really important, there's a lot of components to that. Technology is a big part of that. There's also the the talent acquisition, the HR onboarding piece of it. It's the business integration and the work that they're doing on a day-to-day business with our existing verticals. But from a technology standpoint, onboarding, making sure that the technologies that they've used and then they will be using with OneDigital is seamless, and that experience is something that they feel like we're being acquired. This is a good thing, right? It expands the breadth of the support that we can get from a company, and that's why I think for us, we've been really focused on, since I've joined, really focused on tightening up those activities. When you transition, like I mentioned, the onboarding, that experience, the culture, that's their first view into working with OneDigital. So we want to make sure that's a great experience for our users. We're very hands-on, making sure that day one, when they're going live, we've got resources there on hand to help them. They understand the services that are offered to them. And so it's just really important. It's a really important first impression for our users and for our new employees.
Yeah, and part of that acquisition, in addition, no doubt, to organic growth, is just a substantial amount of growth across the organization. I can only imagine, even in a year and a half, that it's probably a very different profile than when you began, and thus will be again in a year and a half,
Yes.
or 2 or 3. How do you think about staying ahead of that growth and ensure that it happens in a responsible way that's manageable?
Yeah, it's an important aspect of my job. It's an important aspect of my peers. Just making sure that from a technology standpoint, I work very closely also with the Chief Product Officer, Vinay Gadwani. And as we're looking at new technologies, GenAI, I know we're gonna touch on that topic a little bit. It's the topic of the day for every CIO, CTO. Those technologies, making sure that we have the right people supporting those technologies, that we're also being very forward-looking in what makes sense for a company. If we're acquiring a company that's a new vertical for us, they may come with different technologies that are supportive for that particular vertical. And so we just need to make sure that we have good integration, a good support model in place, and are really thinking about how that platform will integrate successfully with our existing platforms. Also, from a data standpoint, we want to make sure that data is integrated, and that data is we're able to also look at data and trust the data that's coming across. So that's another big initiative for OneDigital right now is data strategy. I was just on a call this week with some other CIOs. I mean, this is a tough nut that everyone is trying to crack, to make sure that that data is in the forefront. Data is the lifeblood of any company, and so you want to make sure that it is trusted. And so that's just other things that we are working on as part of our strategy from a technology standpoint.
Talk a bit about how you think about data strategy. What are some of the aspects that constitute that to ensure you're maturing that practice that is so foundational to what you're describing?
One of the things when I started with OneDigital, what I wanted to do was really look and in partnering with the Chief Product Officer, because as we look at data across the organization, step one is you have to make sure that you have a data governance practice in place, right? Or at least start to think about implementing a data governance practice, right? So that's critical. That was part of our data strategy. Looking at tools and trying to determine how do we, we're getting data across multiple different platforms, multiple different verticals. We have to make sure that data is consistent, that there is a golden record. And so that's the other piece of this data strategy, is really looking at, in the end, that we have data that's clean, that's consistent, and that is a consistent record across the multiple platforms. The tools, I think the people, making sure that you have the right people in place. You have data stewards in the field that are supporting the data and that entering of the data coming in, and then data can take on many forms as we ingest data, whether it's through APIs, whether it's through flat files, whether it's through just manual entering on the keyboard. You have to have governance policies in place, controls in place, so that you can start to execute on that strategy. And then you have to think about the ongoing support for that, right? So that's the other piece of this, is how do you maintain and make sure that data stays clean, that those business rules that you've created stay consistent and stay up to date. So that ongoing care and feeding of that strategy it's critically important. So that's a big focus for us here at OneDigital.
And a foundational layer to capturing value related to generative AI as well. You mentioned that a moment ago. Talk a bit about your own thought process and how the organization is leveraging that.
Gen AI, it's everybody wants to utilize it. I've used it. We call it Copilot. It's a great partner. It's an addition to the team. We are trying to figure out, just like every other company is really trying to understand, how can Gen AI and AI really enable revenue generation, operational efficiencies for an organization. So we're doing the same thing, taking a very thoughtful approach to Gen AI and the tools that are out there, making sure that there's clear policies in place. Training has to be part of that as well. And then really having a focused team around that. And that's something that we've started to initiate within OneDigital, is really looking at specific use cases around how Gen AI can help us, whether it's with the service desk, whether it's with our sales producers, whether it's with HR. There are so many different use cases that we can explore, that we are exploring. It's taking that thoughtful approach in moving forward in Gen AI. That's what we're doing here. And I think, based upon conversations that I have had with several of my peers, that is a very similar approach that other CIOs are taking as well.
Interesting. Thank you for sharing some of your thoughts there. I also wanted to ask you. You are obviously a woman chief information officer. I know you're also very involved in Women in Technology, a Georgia-based organization that empowers girls and women at every stage of their STEAM careers. And I wanted to ask you a bit about your own perspectives on the progress that's being made there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate you asking about this, Peter. This is an area that I'm just very passionate about. Personally myself, I actually started in accounting and then got into IT by happenstance 2 years into my career, and I've never left. I love technology. I love the world of IT. As I look back on my career and how do I get more women? How do we get more women into technology? As I've been in rooms and where I was the only woman in a room. It's changed so much, just in the last 5 years, where there are so many more women in technology, but more. And I'm involved with the organization here in Atlanta that I am on the board of. It's Women in Technology, and it's headed currently by Penny Collins, who's our CEO and president. But this organization does so much for women, young women, all the way to women that are looking at changing careers, single moms. And so, as you think about, women today make up literally only 20% of any STEM related or STEAM related jobs. And it's just not enough. We need to get more women, more young women interested in careers and technologies. It's just such a vast opportunity for them. And so I'm very supportive. I mentor in that program, and just very fully supportive of what they do. As I look back as well, the other reason why I'm very passionate about it is, my mom had her own company, electrical contracting company, and the strides that she made, right, in building that company, being a leader, really set the stage for what I wanted to do. So that's kind of what got me here, where I'm at today.
What an inspiring story. Thank you for sharing that, Marcia. I wanted to ask you also, we've talked about a number of important trends, from data to generative AI, among others. Are there other tech or business or any other sorts of trends that particularly excite you as you look to the future?
I think Gen AI is going to be the number one trend for all of us. So that's a definite and priority for myself, for our organization. I think there's a couple other things. I think one is around cyber advancements and just cybersecurity. I mean, before Gen AI, cybersecurity was the other hot topic, right, on the minds of CIOs and of companies around the world. And so I think those two areas are still going to be just in the forefront. I think we're going to start seeing is the overlap between the two. I'm sure we've already seen the overlap of Gen AI and cyber advancements. I think the other thing, and this is I think about trends. I think it's trends in our people and how our workforce is quickly adapting right, to these different trends. And so that's what really excites me as well, is really seeing the opportunities for our employees, for graduates coming out of college. There's so many things right now with technology, things that are changing every day, that opportunity is it's just widening the door for our workforce. So that's a trend that does excite me.
I also wanted to ask you, Marcia, you've been as I mentioned at the outset, a chief information officer multiple times over. As you reflect on your journey, you already talked about the inspiration from your mother from a business perspective. Are there other difference makers along the way that have facilitated your rise to the posts you've had?
Yeah, I think I would say as I was reflecting on this and looking back on my career, I think my family, my mom was probably my most inspirational. She brought me over from Vietnam. My dad brought both of us over from Vietnam. And so for me, the biggest inspiration, just what she did and how she led her life. I think my family for sure was an inspiration. But as I look back though, one of the things that I wish I had had more of, and this is why I'm so involved in mentoring now, is having that person, having that peer, or even a mentor or a confidant, a woman in a either a leadership role or in IT that could really help guide you, right? And I think that was the piece of it. I missed that as I was going through my career, and that's why I'm just very passionate now about making sure that young women as they're moving into technology, that we make those connections. We make even those smallest connections, right? It goes a long way. And I think even the connections I had going through my career, whether it was my, managers or my, peers or coworkers, just the small connections that they helped me with along the way, really meant a lot. And I think that's just something for me and for all of us to think about too, is that we have a lot of influence to really help take advantage of that in a positive way. I think can really help our workforce today in technology, and help them grow into leaders in the tech space.
Well, fantastic reflection. Certainly something for all of us to bear in mind, as you say. Well, Marcia, thank you for a wonderful discussion. It's been great to learn more about the remarkable growth that OneDigital continues to experience, but also the role that you and your team play in ensuring that growth happens in a way that is responsible and sustainable among a variety of topics that we covered. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Peter. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the time.